This is an historic moment, I think, on this podcast. I'm Tom Foolery. My guest today is Jacob Diaz, the peerless, matchless undercover virologist on Instagram. Shared a lot of your stuff, man, and have mentioned it in this last season or so of episodes to highlight for people the what I think is the most true philosophy around health that we can have, which is the understanding of terrain as opposed to germ theory. And I know you're certainly making your bones and bread there, as you should. I know that people can be skeptical, especially with huge shifts like this. And this is the year of shifts for my students of astrology out there. 5 major planets moving. It just feels different anyway. It has little to nothing to do with Trump or Trudeau or whomever. It has little to nothing to do with that. It's more about the grand scheme of where we find ourselves in this realm. And people can still cling and they can still grasp to old belief systems, and thankfully we've got people like Jacob shaking things up with the end of COVID, which I mentioned before we start there, my friend. We can't start at the very beginning. We can't start with your birth quite yet, and every day since. Instead, I think it's poignant to talk about, where did you find yourself spiritually, personally? How poised were you to handle the psyop that was imminent in 5 years ago, man?
It's crazy.
This time of year, people were getting a little something. They were experiencing a little bit of something, and for some it was gnarly. For some it was just another, something familiar with how they were feeling with the symptoms. But I am curious to know, with people like yourself who have since made the very most of that psyop for the best, to enlighten, to educate, to inform, to grow. How ready were you or not for everything that came down the hill quite then? And with that,
the way I was raised, my parents are very New Yorkers, Puerto Ricans, very tough, very strong. So it wasn't something that I was scared of. It wasn't something that I was too worried about. But at the time, I was living in Brooklyn, and the things that I was seeing from the news and from what people were telling me did not match up with what I was seeing in my day-to-day life. So I started to question things, because I think anyone who is intelligent enough to understand that something's not right, let me just check it in myself. Got into the work with Alex Zek, Tom Cowan, Amanda Vollmer, Andrew Kaufman, all those people. And then I started to see, wait a second, what's happening in China is not happening anywhere else. Yet here we are getting these hospitals ready for something that isn't even here. All the crackheads I know, they're all completely fine. They're not sick, and they're outside, vibing. And people are losing their jobs, living in fear. And I'm like, something's not right. So I read The End of COVID. Not the End of COVID. The Contagion Myth, rather. And that blew my mind, the Contagion Myth. And this was in 2019.
Just real quick. I mean, the crux of that question is how far up the hill, how did you have access to people? I'd never heard of people like Tom Cowan, ADV, Bicklesons until the last 2 years. So what was that portal like for you to get to know their work?
It was a blessing, honestly. It was really all through Instagram and Telegram initially.
Great.
Because I had my own personal Instagram. I didn't have an Undercover Virologist. And I just started seeing things. I put like #virus or #Wuhan, and I would see their work. I would see Amanda Vollmer talking about how viruses don't exist. And I was like, that's interesting. Or Alex Zek, and just talking about, he was at that point in West Point coming out of the army, and he was like talking about this stuff. And I was resonating. Something was right about what I was hearing. And then when he started having guests on, and then I checked in with Dr. Cowan, and I was like, wait a second. A lot of doctors are also saying the same stuff. Wait a second. This might be legit. And inside of me, and you talked about spiritually speaking, it never made sense. And I'm a believer in God. I'm a believer in a loving creator. I'm a Bible reader. That a loving creator would create these things that somehow would just want to kill you. It did not make sense at all when you understand how nature is symbiotic and works together. And from then, I was able to accept, wait a second, maybe my whole paradigm is just completely wrong. And I'm able to say I was wrong and just completely flip the way I see things. And from then on, 2019 up until now, I got into contact again with the Bicklesons, with the Cowans of the world, the Baileys, and just change the way I see things, give all the information I've learned this last 5 years to people for free, because this stuff is life. Like, this is the most important thing, to understand that your body is one with nature, and not to succumb to the stupid psyops and the fear mongering that CNN will push all these people. Because when you actually, and you said you did a deep dive on lab leak theory not too long ago, and you realize, wait a second, everything they're doing in these labs is just complete pseudoscientific garbage. So what am I afraid of? Like, and when you realize from the PCR, from the fake mortality stats, from the videos they were showing, all of it was just straight up lies, all of it. And they planned it. I mean, when you look at Event 201, when they did like in October of 2019, it had to do with a pandemic and all these things that we see when we saw in 2020, 2021 were planned. Everything was planned. So let's not fall for it. And it's coming again with bird flu or disease X.
Yeah.
It's happening again. Don't fall for it. I mean, and we'll get into it.
We sure will. Thank you for that's a great brief synopsis. I know when we go back to those times, it can certainly expand. But
I'm seeing a Vietnam flashbacks right now.
Well, shoot, man. I mean, yeah, you were in the throes of it, and I mean, yeah, for you and I to be near greater metropolises of the East Coast, where a lot of these things. I mean, man, I still see the aftershocks of it. I feel for. Shout out the boomers. They've had good lives, and apparently so good that they really struggle with the concept of death. And so I wonder, bird flu or something like that seems like old hat, and how dare they think that we're that stupid and retarded that we would succumb to that again. Now, this is not the purview of our conversation as I see it. The weather is the only other thing that I believe could be that next threat that everyone's vulnerable to. Again, like when fire and sources of a wildfire, by and large, I don't believe they're natural. I mean,
no,
just from what I've seen,
you're not starting a ginormous fire with a tiny barbecue in a park. That's not happening.
No, and there's enough evidence of arson, especially in Canada.
The lasers in Mexico.
Yeah,
not Mexico. It was Maui.
That's right. And other places. I mean, shoot, and so it's on the grand scale of why these things happen, and I'm going to take Emily Moyer's advice and not get into the why so much as the how, because directed energy is the same with our thoughts and feelings. It's also there on a technical level as well, and the black magicians, such as they are, still need to tell us what it is that we're doing. And there's a balance to that. I mean, I know that now it's becoming, the delayed release of things like, the verification and going after Fauci and people like that. Some of it is distraction. And yet there's also, this is where discernment comes in, is we do need to feel into what is the difference between a distraction and what are we able to discern is something that they have revealed their method, and we now need to rescind or commit our consent. It's totally up to us, which is, I think for plenty of people, it should be empowering. Some people are disempowered by that. I am promoting the idea that we are equipped and we are called to, be aware of our consent. And I mean, to shift into a concept of wholeness, and then, I mean, for all of the great cliches around dis-ease, it presupposes that our natural state is ease, that our ease of living would be where we're supposed to be, and anything that takes us out from there is a problem. So with that, I want to give just a quick visual to and spotlight on the absolute triumph, man, and congratulations to you and all involved in the end of COVID, because it was really, for me, as a personal testimonial, it was such a steep learning curve of information, plenty of which was new to me, to start at so if we look over here at the left and the first narrative, setting the stage, so much about economics, so much about the financial system, the geopolitical system at the time, and then sprinkled in there, of course, matters related to law and of course natural law as well, which is something I believe we'll talk about as well. And then, I mean, I'm skipping a little bit ahead here, but for people who are brave enough to watch this episode, you just see all these different segments. I mean, there's up to a dozen different chapters, maybe more, in some of these. And then, I mean, you guys really put cherries on top with these really essential game-changing bonus sessions and live stream Q&As. I've gone through most of these and tried to introduce some of these ideas to people. I've spoken a lot about Bear Lando and his work with different spagyrics, and again, shifting how we treat certain ailments and just how we conceive of it all. But I think if I had a first question around this, Jacob, it would be, depending on how much you engage with the end of COVID these days, and just in hindsight in general, how would you grade, how would you evaluate the vision, the execution, and then is there any new information you feel like you would include? I mean, I know that's the tricky part, is it's almost like writing a book, because you put it all
Yeah.
out there and then you say, fuck, we missed something, or we don't quite have something all together. So just give us a little Monday morning QB on the end of COVID.
Yeah, I mean, dude, I remember getting the DM from Alec. Me, I think Mike Stone, a couple others, Bear Lando. We contacted and say, hey, we have a plan to build something really special here, and I was excited because I was like, me, man, I feel honored. And we just shot the stuff, and we're saying, okay, well, people are gonna have questions about this. People are gonna have questions about this. We don't believe stuff about the lab leak, but let's include it just to have it there, because we want to attract people of all sides, both sides.
Yeah.
Viruses are real, viruses are fake. Let's get both of them and let's have a discussion. And it took maybe, I would say, give or take a year to really put everything together, get those schedulings, the Zoom calls and meetings and recordings and everything. And then through the end of COVID, I was actually able to get in touch with what I consider kind of like my mentor, Dr. Mary Arce. I did the mask episode with her. I also did the electron microscopy episode with her.
Yeah.
And then from there, she's actually only like 45 minutes away from me. So we've connected there. We have a relationship and everything. But just
that's a huge deal, man, to have a local mentor. I refer to Paul Check as my mentor from afar, and a couple of that, and I feel fine with that. You know, I one of my aims is to be a satellite here in New England for people, and it's great to know that you're in New York. But just wanted to mention that because that's something I talk about in the conceptualization of who's to say. Is there anyone in your life who, when they speak, you're sharing a room with them and space with them, and you feel the wisdom behind what they're saying? And it seems to be rare these days. So I'm thrilled that you have that.
Yeah, I'm thrilled too. I love it. And to keep going, I mean, the Bigglesons, I got in touch with them through the end of COVID as well. Learned about the holographic blood, which I would love to talk about in a bit. But that is just insane stuff. And I would give us an A. I mean, we had about 100. I would give us like 110,000 enrollees. So we had a lot of freaking people.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Is that the status? Wow.
Yeah, as of now. So we had a lot of people, and I didn't think it was going to get there anyway. But I mean, we just did a great job, and we're still adding content. Like if something else comes up, we'll add it to the bonus sessions. We'll tell people to go check it out. I still give people the links and stuff in case they're interested. But it's a perfect segue into terrain. I consider it like a terrain college. You're getting everything that you need from every aspect in one place for like $77. I mean, come on, you're not getting that anywhere. But yeah, it was awesome.
Of course not. Wow, I can't believe I missed the affiliate registration. I need to jump on that.
Yeah, you could have done that.
And circulate, because and I do it anyway. I just send out the link, and anyone who needs a taste. I mean, it's great to be able to look at, which I've encountered in my own coaching work, is to be able to look at a menu and maybe sort of get a sense of what the offering is. I do tell people there are few other resources and containers that would even remotely be commensurate to this level of, and it's wisdom. It's not just information, because the levels you all have in there, man, there are stories from the front lines, and then there's philosophy, and then there's certainly first principles, and then there's real. I mean, as you go on, then we're really expanding the consciousness around things like water and blood, and I mean, it's tremendously dynamic for people. And I think there's a lot of we know some good examples of just the disparate nature between value and cost, and these things, to have access to something like this, or what Amanda Vollmer offers for her database of medical knowledge, because that's something I wanted to bend your ear about as well. Is, I mean, I certainly recommend people make these investments. They're not expenses. It's an investment you make, especially to have lifelong access to visit and revisit concepts within the end of COVID. I think one thing that comes up, Jacob, is now with your practice, or as the landscape around virtual healthcare resources evolves, where do you point people in the direction of was going to say emergency care or just
Mhm.
at home care. And I know your practice is now
Yeah.
dealing with people who have something like resembling emergencies. And what's the status of of that landscape of what people can access to edify and prepare themselves for at home care when things seem a little dire?
Yeah. So that's a great question. So for at home emergency care, all that stuff that's acute, really, necessary, urgent stuff like that. The first most important thing is having the knowledge and the wisdom before it actually happens, right?
Yeah.
Knowing what to do before it happens is the key. You don't
Yes.
want to be running to the nature food store and just buying everything you see
Yeah.
whenever your kid gets a cold or pneumonia or whatever the case may be. So for me personally, I do have an option on my um practice where it's called a quick fix. So you have like an acute fever, pains, whatever. You call me, I'll give you some tips. But I think the most important thing to have, as I said, knowledge. So the two things I have personally when I deal with quick fixes or really acute
Mhm.
illnesses, I have a book. The one they gave it to me for free, and I freaking love it. But it's Ancient Remedies Revived, which is like a Bible of things you can do and make at home,
Yes.
really cheap. Herbal stuff, homeopathic stuff like that, you
I
can
feel like
have
I've
on
seen
deck.
that
Yeah,
on
they,
Instagram.
they were posting it everywhere on Instagram, and they DM me. They were like, "Hey, so can you shout us out, and we'll give it to you for free?" I was like, "Sure."
Is it from the Lost Herbal Remedies account? Am I remembering
I
that? Do you
think,
recall?
yeah, I think so. I think you might
Okay.
be right. Yeah, I think you might be right. But something like that, having on hand whenever something emergency comes up, you realize that nature gives you everything you need in order to heal. Homeopathics, Lisa Sturback, who is a certified homeopath out of, I believe, Britain.
We're scheduled to talk next
There
week.
you go. Yeah.
I'm stoked. Yeah.
So homeopathy is another thing to really just get your toes wet in it and just understand how it works. It's really simple stuff. It's like to like. So you're just finding the
Mhm.
correct remedy. So, and these are all really cheap. You can have these herbs and teas and homeopathics on hand at home and have your own tiny clinic. Put it in the cupboard above the fridge, have things ready so that if it ever comes up, you can rely on yourself to heal. And if you don't have that confidence, yeah, you'll come to me or Dr. Mary to help you. I wish there were terrain urgent cares. I mean, that would be awesome to have,
Yeah.
but they just don't exist anymore. I mean, that's the flexion report. They got rid of all that stuff. So it's just about knowledge and applying it to yourself, and you'll see how easy it is. It's honestly easy.
I'm glad that's a relief to hear you say that it can be simple and easy. And
Yeah.
that's even a language and thinking upgrade that I'm embracing more these days is uh not assuming that things are hard
Hmm.
or challenging or too expensive or whatever. And yes, certainly the preparation of mind to know again, like we were talking about offline, when our animals get sick or
Hmm.
when our babies and our little kids get sick. I mean, yeah, that's the gut check
Yeah.
because first of all, I mean, it's one thing to do a scan of my body. I'm aware of what my body feels ideally. I think the awareness is a core piece as well is to feel into what's a pretty good baseline, as Eileen McCusick talks about with your charge
Yep.
and your voltage. How would you grade it right now? Do you feel like you're 90% available every day? Do you feel like it's 19%? But then from there, it's yeah, I mean the panic that sets in when you feel like, you know, something is so wrong. Like so for my cat with him breaking out in skin stuff. And we got to the bottom of that. I mean, we took some Christmas stuff out, you know, fake tree,
Hmm.
blanket that had been sitting in the garage for 11 months and
Yeah.
you know, turned out to be that, but it was a gut check to be like, fuck, I mean, you know, we don't want him to suffer
Yeah.
and we don't want this to and I mean, of course he healed himself. Of course he did. I mean, we gave him some tissue salts,
That's also
which
always
is
great. Love tissue
I
salt.
I think so, and so let's actually use that as a good segue. Your experience with that, mine came through Lisa and Steve Falconer, and I was fascinated by when I started reading George Washington Carey's The Zodiac and the relationship with cell salts, and getting into the deep esotericism, the biblical significance of astrology, and then how that relates to these organic and inorganic compounds. So, as a practicing naturopath yourself and with an awareness of homeopathy, how do you describe, because I don't think I've done a fair job of describing to people tissue salts, their makeup as well as their significance. I've practiced with them. I have her book. I see how they plug and play, and yet it is a much different tact than take a Sudafed, take a vitamin C supplement. It's so much different. So
So
will
much
you
different.
give us your own experience with that, and how you conceptualize how tissue salts play a role?
So, and this pretty, it's pretty much the same exact principles for homeopathy in general.
Hmm.
What you are diluting are the mineral compounds that are commonly found in the body, and that dilution really is holding the energetic power of whatever it is you are sourcing it from. And so that's what homeopathy is. You can take something from like basil and you can dilute it to a form where now it only has the medicinal properties and energetic properties of basil. You take that and you're going to heal. So it's just about looking at the symptoms of, say, your cat or yourself, and really matching up with what the tissue salt or the homeopathic will enact in the body. So, I mean, for me, I think Cali Foss is one of my favorite ones
Hmm.
because my wife, she doesn't really do well in the cold. She gets colds pretty frequently because when the weather's changing and all that. Give some Cali Foss, she's back and steady and healthy in about like 2 hours. So I absolutely love cell salts. I love homeopathy in general because it's proven, it's cheap, it's effective, and it actually branches into something I've been delving into is isopathy or
Yes.
isopathy. Really,
Hmm.
it's under the umbrella of homeopathy, but
Okay.
it's really the same principles: dilution of a substance to match with what you are seeing in the body, to then connect with the body and be like, hey, let's help. Right? It's all about energy, and isopathy is isolated compounds from germs. So they actually completely disprove antibiotics and germ theory because you're actually using the germs to
Mm.
enact a response to heal. So in homeopathy, it's dilution of a substance like to like, isopathy, very similar. You get the germ that is a different form of the same germ that's affecting your body because germs are not caused disease. They're just there at the
Hmm.
site of the disease process. So what you're doing is you're matching it up. You're getting a specific stage, giving it to your body in a diluted form, and then it actually speeds up the healing process. So that's the same thing we see with cell salts, the same thing we see with broader homeopathics from plants or metals or minerals, whatever. You are matching up what you're seeing in the body with the remedy. I actually have a tissue salt kit, which I'm sure you have. Everybody should have a tissue salt kit at
Yeah.
home or a homeopathy kit. They're not expensive. You can get a good
No.
quality one and just have it on deck. Put it in your sick basket.
Yeah.
And again, it's not hard to understand these things. It's a lot of information. It can be a little bit, how do you say, what's the word I'm looking for? Hard to understand. I'm forgetting it there. But when you realize that your body is designed to heal, and your body is designed to work with nature, you realize that all you have to do is remove the block and give your body what it lacks, and the body will do the rest. It's going to do it. You don't have to rely on the white coats. You don't have to rely on symptom stopping chemicals that will either make you worse or just make you have a chronic illness. Let's focus on giving your body what it needs, and it's going to do everything it needs to do when you provide it. That's all it is.
Yeah.
And tissue salts are no different. I mean, I love tissue salts. I should delve deeper into tissue salts and the history, but it was the same thing with you. I got into contact with Steve Falconer and I heard his talks about tissue salts. I was like, oh snap, this is insane. I love it.
Yeah.
And I just started applying it, and lo and behold, they work magically. I love them. So it's also a leap of faith because when
Yes.
you wanna learn about this stuff, but you're never gonna understand it until you practice it. So you do it with your cat, do it with your child, do it with yourself, and you'll see the benefits.
Yeah. And that's where I've, to be honest with you and myself, is in general. I mean, it's one thing to understand these things on an intellectual level and see, and thankfully my personality is, and I've been with someone for 11 plus years now who is highly skeptical, and will constantly ask, are you sure, and why. And I appreciated your description of encountering an alternative to the germ theory that we all accept, and discarding that and moving on from it was curiosity.
Yep.
And mine is the same, thanks to people like Paul Check, who have encouraged me to ask. Instead of saying, well, that's not true, you say, is it true? What does it mean
Exactly.
if it's true?
You gotta have a
And
level of intellectual honesty and just do the work yourself and
that
really look
that,
at it.
that would help. And I
Yeah.
still empathize with the captured people and the people who are so anchored into their positions and their livelihood and all that. And I know you've encountered that as well.
Oh, yeah.
It's a trip to see on such a high level. I'm much more endeared to people say I got it wrong. I don't know if you're familiar with Owen Benjamin, the comedian, but
Yeah, yeah.
I really enjoy his stuff when I tune in. And one of his mantras is, and I'm a broken record on here echoing it to people, but it's so good. I may be wrong, but I'm not lying.
Yeah.
And I'm much more drawn to those people who say, I may be wrong, feel really good about this position on real health and what
Mhm.
is moral and what is more aligned with spiritual law and what is closer to a universal truth of spiritual laws. I'm much better with all that than I am with people who really cling and who really exhibit an antagonistic position to anything contrary. One thing I picked up on in your description of homeopathy and also how we think of tissue salts, how now do you use the term germs, and how do we frame that for I'm especially curious for myself as well as for people when you're saying we take a germ and still bring that into a way in which we can alchemize it. The addendum to this question, if you want to run with it, is where are you landing nowadays on the discussion around do we have an immune system?
Yeah. So that love that question. I'll start rambling here. So I
Great.
still use the word germs
Yep.
all the time. There's nothing wrong with the term germ. To germinate or to be a germ seed,
Hmm.
it really just means to begin. It's the
That's a
beginning.
great reminder. Thank you.
Yeah. So when you think of it like that, these germs are the beginning of us. So there's no reason to be afraid of it. It's when you start to apply characteristics to them that is just not how they work. Like the germ is attacking you, the germ
That's
is
right.
causing disease, the germ is spreading from my wife to me to my child. No, that's not what happens because the beginning is keeping you alive. These things are what eat our food, make nutrients, keep energy up, make us feel good, do everything in our body that we just, it's so just in the background, we don't understand what they're actually doing for us on a day to day basis. So when I'm talking about isopathy and isopathics and whatever, it needs to you need to understand how the theory of pleomorphism works. So pleomorphism, for people listening, they'll be like, what the hell is he talking about? So pleomorphism is the idea, the factual objective fact that germs change their role, their size, their shape, their morphology, depending on the terrain that they inhabit. So they are constantly adapting to the terrain, i.e., your body, right? So the germs in the soil will be different from the germs in your blood, in your interstitial fluid, in your organs. But if you become really stagnant, you have acidic waste products, you're not eating good food, you're really stressed out, the germs are going to change their form to start eating your dead and dying tissue to try to keep you healthy. Because if your dead and dying tissue continues to accumulate, guess what? You're going to get sick and you're going to get worse and worse and more chronic. So they're just responding. So the theory of isopathy is simply what you're taking is the germ, probably a stronger, higher valence germ. We would call this a microzyma. The
Hmm.
microzymas are the tiny stem cells that you see, or microbial stem cells you see in dark field microscopy. They're all around the blood. They are what become white blood cells, red blood cells, bacteria, fungus, all that stuff. They keep us alive. So they become different germs. You would then isolate one of those stages of germ to then stimulate an action with your native microbiome or your native microzyma. And then that will stimulate your body to, okay, let's get the bigger guys in here. Instead of the infantrymen, let's bring in air support. Let's bring in tanks, stuff like that. So then your body is able to handle all the toxicity at a better level, more efficiently, more effectively. And the symptoms usually will get faster and stronger when you take them. Why? Because you're promoting expulsion. It's very similar to homeopathy. You match up the correct remedy, you're going to start getting the fever, the chills, the productive cough, which is a good thing. We erroneously call that a bad thing. We
Yeah.
want the stuff to come out. We don't want the stuff being suppressed. So when you do that, lo and behold, you get better in a day. And you're like, oh, wait a second. It may not be the germs causing my disease. Um, and with regards to the immune system, hate,
Yes, indeed.
hate that word, man. I hate when people say that because it's antagonistic. It's good germ, bad germ, attacking, warlike mentality. And the reason I use the tank and infantryman analogy is because there are germs that are able to handle a more toxic environment than other germs. Fungus are able to handle more toxicity than bacteria. That's why we use fungus to eat oil spills in the ocean. So when that occurs, when some disease occurs, we need to understand it's all coming from within. I think the word infection is kind of like a misnomer because it's actually coming from within you. The bacteria aren't being caught and causing illness. There is some stagnation, whether it's structural, whether it's emotional, whether it's nutritional, whether it's toxicity, that is leading to an imbalance in your homeostasis. That's the little coin term by Claude Bernard. Homeostasis is just the baseline for your health. When that is out of balance, which is usually caused by your own decisions or your own exposure, your native germs, your microzyma are going to be like, okay, there's something wrong. Let's spurn into action and let's heal. And then when you look at the supposed immune system, what is it that we're talking about? What is immune there? We're talking fevers. Are they part of the immune system? Because fevers, what they do is they melt away the gel-like water in our body, the structured water, to allow us to sweat, allow us to remove excess fluids. It gets lymphatic fluid going, gets blood going, gets cellular waste going. We vomit, we diarrhea, we sweat, and lo and behold, we're better. Are we fighting something or are we flushing things out? The bacteria, we know they're native to us. We know we have around 100 times more microzyma than blood cells. So how can they be the cause of illness if they are an integral part of the supposed immune system? And then people say, oh, immune cells. Well, immune cells like white blood cells, for instance, most of them are made from the bone marrow, from the gut, all that stuff. But the microzymas actually become white blood cells. The same microzymas that become bacteria and fungus also become white blood cells. So is there antagonism there, or is it completely symbiotic? I've seen, people send me videos, for instance, of phagocytes, these white blood cells that they will go around after a disease process and start eating cellular debris, and they'll also eat bacteria. Well, why is that occurring? Is there a dead bacteria that hasn't pleomorphed back into a microzyma? Is there certain waste products that are surrounding a bacteria that need to be eaten? So what does the body do? I'm going to get a white blood cell in there to eat the bacteria and all the cellular debris so that we can finish the job more adequately. But when you look at the blood, what do you see? You see white blood cells, you see bacteria, you see red blood cells. There is no fighting. It's the body working with each other. When you look at
which ones are the killer ones? All the
killer T cells. Oh my god,
the language is so,
and that's
something
what
that
brainwashes people. That's what gets people. Oh, it's a killer cell. Oh, it's a virus. Oh, it's a back. No, they're working together. Nature is not antagonistic. Here I'll go on a tangent. I hate when people say herbs are antimicrobial. Hate it. Absolutely hate it. Why? Where are the herbs growing in? They're growing in soil. What is filled in the soil? Germs. Yeah. And why are they filled with nutrients? Because the germs are eating the waste, converting that into nutrition. And that's why the herbs grow and they're so medicinal. When you look at raw milk, people, or breast milk, we'll talk about breast milk. People have said, oh, breast milk stops microbes from forming. Okay, look at breast milk in a microscope. All you're going to see are germs filled to the brim. So how is it that they're antibiotic? How is honey an antibiotic? Honey literally comes from the vomit from the stomach of a bee. There's tons of germs in there. How is it antimicrobial? So again, it's the word. It's the association that we make in our heads that ruin the way we think. When you realize all these compounds are simply providing a lot of nutrition, providing a lot of germ support, and providing a lot of opening up the pathways to help us heal. So they'll unclog the liver. They'll get the stuff in our throat to come out. They're helping. They're not causing illness. So I hate the immune system. I hate antimicrobial when it comes to natural stuff. The earth, nature, our own body works in tangent with together. It's not antagonistic. And if it was antagonistic, we wouldn't be alive today to talk about
it. That's an essential overview of pleomorphism. You want to hear a great trip for you, because we were talking about fascia a little bit offline. The woman who's taught me a lot recently her name is Brooke McPoyle. She's at Musical Breathwork on Instagram. We just did a really epic podcast on good combination of fascia and breathwork. But the hyaluronic acid is a healing molecule that fascia makes. Figure she has is it holds up to 1,600 water molecules, and it acts as a hydrator that restores the fluidity in the fascia fibers, and that oscillates between a solid and a liquid. So that changes its state too, and we're probably quite green to that concept within the body. There's a great, I'm trying to remember this line from this beautiful novel I read called The Overstory, and it has a lot to do with just how things turn into other things. It's a paraphrase of a Rumi poem, and it's of course deeply profound, and yet on I guess, more technical level, it would certainly benefit us to have that relationship with things. And yeah, I mean, I know you're very attuned as I am to the fear language, to the anti-life language, and that's usually where I start with myself and with people is, like I said, being in the crucible of an illness. For instance, I mean, even just recently, my thanks to Brooke, I'm doing a practice that's called the detox breath. And she said the purpose of this is to really engage, not just like when you go for a hard run or you're 90 minutes into a tennis match, which is sprint, 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 catch your breath, sprint, sprint, sprint. She said this by exhausting the diaphragm, and that being a muscle, an organ, by exhausting that and really getting into maybe some secondary muscles that pump it. It's a 90-second really dynamic pumping breath, and then you get into some holds. That detox is removing things from your lungs. And I have a little bit, I just feel it all moving up, and thankfully my perspective is not that I caught something. Again, so much of the language around virology and illness is it's almost like possession, to say that I have a cold. You gave me, like, of course it's very, very victim-y, very finger pointing, and then I just got this thing. I think it's a much more motivating perspective to say that it's time for these things to come out. Speaking of time, I'd love to get your thoughts on the healing cycle. Of course it's different for everybody, but someone observed to me that one of the reasons why we have such a sort of a disparate relationship with the healing cycle is that I got to get back to work. That's how people feel, is like I can't be sick anymore. I got to get back to work. I got to get back in the gym, or it's like, I got to get back in the gym.
Back in the gym,
I'm like, what is the fucking rush? Wouldn't you rather heal something as entirely as you can instead of being forced to repeat? And I am a student, a novice student. I'm deeply interested in the principles of German New Medicine. I know it's very nuanced. I know it's it's a philosophy. It doesn't explain everything. It's a great place to start for recurring things. I mean, from my own personal experience recently with lumbar disc slippage, and where that where the disc slips, what's occurring in my emotional and relationship life, for that to happen helps spur the recovery. So anything you want to wrap on with health cycle and how people think of timing, and because everyone's question is, how long is it going to take and how much is it going to cost?
Always.
Instead of like, my mentality is, I will do whatever the fuck it takes.
Yes.
Not from a place of, and this is the time of year we're in now. Just real quick before I kick it back to you, is people are in the gym right now and they're switching up their diets right now from a survival standpoint of like, I have to get healthy. I have to get healthy or else. Instead of, I'm motivated by, my mantra for a long time has been, but I'm here to live forever and I could die any day. I'm good with either. The health span is a really big deal to me. So what's been your evolving relationship with health and healing cycle, and when symptoms of drainage, which is, I appreciate from the Bigglesons, they talk about drainage, maybe not necessarily detox. I like drainage. It's usually things just flowing out, going out somehow. What's your evolving opinion now on health cycle?
So I view disease as a cycle, just like any other natural cycle, the water cycle. No one questions how long the water cycle takes. We just kind of accept it. It happens. No one questions how long it takes to fertilize your lawn, to have plants grow. No one questions how long it takes for a woman to develop a baby in her body and then birth it. It just happens. All you have to do.
Steve Falconer points out, which I like, he said, we're all probably preemies, if
I agree.
And it takes us so long to fucking get our act together. It's just a really interesting thought.
It's a good point. When I've learned more about osteopathic work, I understand how much birthing trauma gets into our whole disease process. But the health cycle is no different from any other natural cycle. However, what I've noticed, and personally for me, is you mentioned the people with the new year trying to do violent changes in their body. You're not going to see a lot of changes when you do that. because again, it's more survival. It's a lot of stress going in there. You'll see change, but it's going to be a lot longer. If you make an intuitive effort to make small changes here and there, then make the big changes, that's when you're going to see major changes in your own health. Health is, and the biggest things always say this, health is simple. People are complicated. We tend to complicate the very easy step and principles in health. If you keep your body healthy, you will literally never get sick. It's like I haven't gotten sick in over 2 years now. And I used to get sick pretty much twice, 3 times a year, every year. But keep in mind of your emotional health. You mentioned German New Medicine. And one of the chapters in the holographic blood was about his work, about the CT scans of the brain matching up with certain traumas. It's essentially a branch of traditional Chinese medicine and the meridians. Different organs, different emotions affecting you in certain pathologies. The emotional aspect and the physical aspect are one and the same. People like to focus on only the emotional or only the physical when it's both, right? You have to do both at the same time. Keep in track of your stressful state. You want to be more parasympathetic than sympathetic. You want to be joyful and happy. It's hard in this world, but keeping yourself just yearning for the next day of life, understanding you have goals to set, you want to reach those goals, you want to love people, you want to be a beacon of light, that will keep you healthy, on top of eating the right food, of moving your body, of removing stuff if necessary. If you feel yourself coming down with something, understand that it's your body doing what it needs to do to get things out. So you have a fever, you have a lot of toxicity that's built up probably in the liver. Let's take a rest. Let's sleep, maybe do a water fast, a raw milk fast. Let's do 2 or 3 days. Let's see how your body heals. A lot of people speed up their healing process when they fast because you're not doing anything. You're letting your body do what it needs to do, and all you're doing is resting. If you continually stress, you take your stupid medications you get from your allopathic doctor, you're going to be sick for 2 weeks. You're going to be sick for 3 weeks because you're stressing your body out. When you stress your body out, when we talked about drainage, what happens? You tighten up. When you tighten up, your lymph isn't moving properly, your blood isn't moving properly. So now it's taking a lot longer to heal. So if you just rest at ease, remember dis-ease, you want to be eased when you're distanced from your health. You want to be chill, you want to ground, you want to eat the right food, you want to just give your body time and you will heal. I did the same thing. I used to take the stupid medications. I had a lot of chronic illnesses as a kid, as an adult. I just let my body do its thing, and lo and behold, you're better in a day or two. Because it just knows what it's doing. It's an intelligent cycle. And you mentioned health cycle. Keep yourself healthy. Oh, you messed up. You ate a lot of garbage. You're not sleeping well. You're super stressed. Yeah, you're going to get cold or flu-like symptoms. Why? Your body's rebalancing. It's getting things up. The microzyma in your body is like, hey, there's a lot of stuff here we're not liking. Let's change. Let's eat this tissue. Let's get it out so that we can heal. And in that process, you're getting all that metabolic waste out that you didn't before. Yeah, it sucks while you're through it. No one wants to have symptoms, but they're a good thing. They're uncomfortable because it's a message to your body's like, stop doing this to me, please. So just keep it. And when you talked about your cat, you were looking at all these different factors of what exactly caused your cat to get sick. I love the investigative work. When people are sick, I love to find the trigger. What was it right there that changed it? Could it have been all these factors, or could it have been the blanket that was in the garage for so long with a bunch of dust particles and stuff that the cat breathed in? Lo and behold, he got sick. It's all about not only understanding how the body works, but finding that trigger. Yeah, I didn't sleep well for 3 or 4 days straight. I'm really stressed out. I fought with my wife. I ate takeout. Lo and behold, you get sick. Yeah. It's investigative work to see where your body was and then supporting the cycle when it does occur. So.
I'm with you. That's the worthwhile investigation because it has the greatest bearing on your ability to be high voltage and therefore have the charge to inject into your experience. And I have the inside effects over my shoulder here, and one of the things that I was thinking about the other day is I was telling you about the men's group I was part of offline, and went through a very profound 2 weeks of nothing too intensive. I think the prescription was maybe 2 minutes in front of the mirror and naked if you so choose. And the thought that occurred to me on that front was essentially, if you're observing, especially your naked body, man or woman, in the mirror, are you willing and able to use your thoughts to speak to yourself kind, loving, enthusiastic messages. Most people, possibly not. Most people, for some reason, if they just go to the mind, and thankfully our coaching cues were to be in the heart. Look
Mhm.
out from your heart so that it does. I mean, thank God for the heart. Bless the heart. Its natural state is to be loving, enthusiastic, compassionate, forgiving, understanding. The full arc of this is in the effort to transform or shape or heal the outer body through training and food and therapy and biohacking, etc. It's still neglecting the gatekeeper of the
Mhm.
inner work, and that I think you would agree, the the psyche and our relationship to soul probably has the greatest influence over the organs. Would you
Yes,
would you
I would
say that?
agree.
Okay.
Yeah, I would agree. And the Bigglesons actually talked about it.
Okay.
In one of the later chapters of the book, they started to hit on the Steiner principles and
Yeah.
the consciousness and the soul, and that's what really separates us from the animals in nature. And just having that ability to understand and connect with your own self is something that humans are very special at. We need to realize that we're special. We have powers, quote unquote, that others don't. We can heal ourselves, and I would always say it starts with the mind, especially with chronic illness. Chronic illness is a combination. I would say both. Yeah, you can get acute illness from simply eating a lot of garbage. Yeah, I wouldn't say that's a lot of emotional aspect, but
Yeah, like I
if you
had I had a mouth thing reaction. Like I didn't have to go into the annals of
yeah
German medicine textbook.
exactly exactly
When I was foolishly, I think I was just being lazy. I was chewing on grape seeds. I was enjoying some delicious seedless
Mhm.
grapes, and I just knew that they were releasing something. I just had a reaction, and like it
Yeah,
was fucking fine. I took
yeah,
three
exactly.
days of tissue salts, and it was all good. It
Yeah,
wasn't.
not
It was,
everything is connected directly to deep emotional trauma.
yeah, that's right.
But on the flip side, if you are chronically ill, your emotions are definitely holding you back from healing.
Yeah.
The Chinese knew this, and part of my practice I have on my computer here is an organ emotion meridians PDF where I would match
Ah.
up the emotions with that, and that even goes into dental work. You mentioned your mouth,
Hmm.
how the teeth are connected to each meridian, and they're connected with those meridians that run to specific organs, and each emotion is connected to the organ. So the
So
emotional
your
aspect.
next,
Yeah, go ahead.
just real quick, your next level, if you're not already there, is I've heard anywhere from 9 to 12 fascia meridians.
Yes,
Would
I think
be
yeah, 9 to 12. I want
okay.
to do EAV testing. That's another
Okay.
goal I want to do, which is testing obviously the electrical charge of the
Yeah.
meridians. But that is, and I love the fascia stuff because it's such a neglected topic about the electric flow of our bodies. Even the allopathics admit, they say, "Oh yeah, we're bioelectric beings," but that's all they'll say. They're not going to get deep into it. Yeah, oh yeah,
Right.
the heart has an electromagnetic field that runs 6 feet. Oh, maybe that's why we were 6 feet apart from people for a bunch of years, because our heart actually connects with other people's heart. The
Mhm.
fascia. I saw this talk the other day where it was talking about how the fascia charges your entire body.
Yeah.
And it's like little tiny wires. When you look at fascia under the microscope or whatever, it actually looks like webbing. And the webbing it kind of looks like water. So that goes into the Gerald Pollack's work of EZ water and the fourth phase of water, how we are bioelectric water based beings. So everything fluid like in our body is conducting electricity, energy, and those meridians are the physical substrates of that energy that keep us alive and well. And everything from food, from toxicity to emotions will all affect that. And it shows up in the blood. I mean, the holographic blood stuff, I can probably share my screen later, but
Hmm.
not only does it show organs, but it also shows emotions. And there are stuff like worry cells that are big, black, empty, hollow cells that indicate a trauma or an emotion that is holding on to your body that you haven't released yet. I mean, one of the ones that hit me hard was there was a woman who was raped, and it actually showed a phallic symbol in the blood. So it's like, damn. So the body's actually just remembering that, and you're just holding it in, all that emotional trauma, which is preventing you from healing. So that goes into the consciousness of your ability to overcome that trauma. But that's all up here.
Yeah. And that, see, these things make more sense, especially as people like you who are thoughtful and are seeking the widest context that you can. For me, that makes more sense to think of the body, as Alec, among other, have posited, as being the subconscious,
Mhm.
or at least a consciousness resides there, because so much happens without our influence. And so that's where I really beseech people to invite, and therefore you can ask that consciousness to start to grease new grooves. Of course, that's supported greatly, as Paul Chek says. Probably the most important thing in the healing journey is your intention, because that's where you will guide. Since you are not always going to be hyperactive with your most primary consciousness, that would be where that is, you offer the invitation and then you step back and surrender and let your subconscious, your central nervous system. You probably don't have time for 3.5 hour podcasts these days, but did you see the woman that Alex Eck had on recently named Irene Lyon?
She was talking about the nervous system. Was that it?
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't watch it, but I want to hear it.
Do I'm sure you'll get to it, because just emphasizing points like that is, and especially something that I have been really keen to delve deep with as many people as I can, especially in a one-on-one context, is that because you can do all of the working out and probably the right food. And I mean, as Paul Chek says, in the 4-doctor system, a 3-doctor system, a 2-doctor system is not real health. If the only relationships you have are with Dr. Diet and Dr. Movement, and you don't have a relationship with Dr. Happiness and Dr. Quiet, then you will not be resilient. And so I believe it was Irene who said she prefers to talk about in the immune system conversation is the resilience. And man, Jacob, I think you can acknowledge that for all of the I'll say fear, and then I'll say concern and the criticism around people taking any shots, a lot of them are still standing.
Yeah.
For as much as we get sprayed, for as much as our food gets decimated, we're still here. And that's what's so confusing for people, right? Is I hear it all the time, as I'm sure you do. Well, I'm fine. It's like when I start talking about indoctrination or in school, or I grew up Catholic or things like that, and people say, well, I turned out fine, and of course I bite my tongue, or the tongue slides into the cheek just to say you can be infinitely better. And that's the truth of it. So it's more of a resiliency that we have that it doesn't have to do with defending us against invisible things that we need to be afraid of.
Our body is ridiculously resilient, and when you realize that I can inject heavy metals directly into my blood, I can be breathing air that is sprayed with a bunch of garbage day and night, and I'm completely fine. So what makes me think that this tiny little microbe somehow got me sick? It doesn't make any sense. It just contradicts what they're saying. And terrain is literally, it's all about adaptation. It's all about, again, working with your environment. You're adapting to the stressors, because if you're constantly trying to run away from the stressors, and you see someone spraying the sky, you run in your home, you're not going to be healthy. You're going to be affected by those things. It's part of it is understanding your body is intelligent and giving what it needs to survive, and it will adapt. EMFs suck. I wear an EMF device ever so often. I wear blue light glasses when I'm on the computer late at night. But other than that, I mean, your body, you just gotta deal. You gotta cope. I mean, the real change what we're gonna see is when we make the changes to stop these things from happening. But until then, you have to adapt, and that's part of it. Slow exposure. I'm not saying always be around EMF or chemtrails, but it's a part of it is limiting your exposure and understanding it's going to happen.
And like you said, not sprinting away from it, because that's one of the criticisms I have of the biohacking space, and that's why I am more a proponent of bioharmonizing, would be because let's see, I'm trying to calculate for the moment biohacking stuff I do. Okay, blue light blockers for prolonged daytime screen time, and then evening time. I mean, I have other red light bulbs, that kind of stuff. Yeah, well, hey, at least those are stylish. I mean,
yours are cool, man.
Well, everyone starts with the construction glasses, I think, which is wherever you start. Grow where you're planted. Start where you're at, and all that.
Got some incandescent light bulbs. That's cool.
Okay, yeah,
like those.
They are game changers, and I think you find that especially one of my brands or my brand that synthesizes my 3 greatest interests in real estate. I've been a realtor for 10 plus years now, and a tennis player for a long time, and now a coach, and also all the things I do in health. So home court health, that first aspect is I would advise people and counsel them to say, hey, if you don't have $100K to redo your kitchen, how about $5,000 and you get a water filtration system and you upgrade your pans and you upgrade to
Yep.
glass storage and you upgrade your core cooking oils and fats and things like that
Yes.
and fucking change your life. And I think it just opens you up to some of it is low hanging fruit. And uh, one of my focuses for this year is to be more on the natural purist kick that people like Alec are on and take little to no regular supplement. Like, I'm trying to think, I'm having this relationship with coffee right now of what are the things that you would take every single day? And it's
Mm.
water. And I'm struggling with the rest. Is like, what would I really need? I wouldn't need
Yeah.
the same.
Yeah.
I
What do
wouldn't
you
need,
need? That's the key. What do you
yeah.
you need? Water with minerals. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, because you wouldn't need the same food every day.
No, you would. I mean, for
And
me, I drink. I mean, it's the water with the salt,
yep.
raw milk, and
Mhm.
then an organ supplement. That's it.
Okay.
That's pretty much it.
Which is
But,
good. And when I refer to raw milk, I quickly follow that up. I say to people, also known as milk.
also known as
It's
actual
like
milk, real milk.
yeah. It's like a
Yeah.
home birth, also known as birth.
Birth.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And stuff like that. I mean, yeah,
Yeah,
the
you
the
can
language
totally
upgrades are
people can totally get a little too obsessed with having daily protocols of a billion different things to do, and that can cause stress too. So it's
oh
important
yeah.
making those, and you mentioned making those small changes, having a reverse osmosis water filter, something like that, changing your pans to stainless steel instead of all that garbage coated stuff, changing your cooking fats from canola oil to beef tallow, olive oil. That's going to make major changes in your diet.
Yeah, and I think we alluded to this earlier is that those are at least as far as I can see it, appreciably smaller choices, and
Yes.
they compound as we know. And this is the service. This is why I point people in your direction, or for. Well, I wrote this down the other day in terms of how I would describe. I'm in a new coaching space. I'm at a gym. It's a tennis and fitness program, and I mean I think it's really top flight in terms of just the community so far. And I said something to the effect of, my coaching lineage has given me the tools to help you establish a real foundation in health, to have that well-rounded holistic health, because I do my best to clarify for people what holistic health means. And then I say for anything that is chronic or special or really highly technical, I also have the sphere to refer that out to. I wouldn't just leave you on your own. And I think, Jacob, that's where uh I am starting to find some traction. I believe you are as well. Is that for the people who at least are open? I tell this story all the time. When my wife and I were we finished our deck and then we installed a patio with the help of her dad, and it really was just the three of us. And I think we did it last year on like the fucking 3rd of July, and it was 99 degrees,
Yeah.
98% humidity, and we did it like all day. And because we just wanted to get it done, and boom, we got it done. And I remember going inside with her, and it finally dawned on me. I said, with how exhausted I am right now, I deeply appreciate why some people, the last thing they would want to do would be maybe to cook a meal themselves from scratch, and then spend the rest of the evening investigating, more ways to get healthy. So I get it. People are tired.
Yep.
People are stressed. People are confused. Some people are deeply uncurious, which is fine. For the people who are open, I like to think that, again, they can either stumble or sprint to work like yours or mine. And, okay, fine. You don't have to be, because you and I share that hunger for, what are the levels that we can keep exploring that are
Yep.
going to make a lasting difference in how we all perceive wholeness and healing. Then fine. Then at least make the investment in working with a high level coach, and not just someone who is going to recycle most of what we realize. Because for as many people as I meet who acknowledge the problems, they're still not solution oriented. And that's
Nope.
why I think the way forward and the end of COVID stand out is to be, it is one thing to say, yeah, fluoride in the water, terrible. So what? So what you're just
Exactly.
gonna keep drinking it? You
Exactly.
know
What are you
what?
gonna do about it? Exactly.
Oh god, the vaccine schedule, crazy, terrible. Are you gonna do anything
Yeah.
to when you're confronted with that decision? So I know one thing I wanted to ask you was
No.
what did you find was the next portal after terrain or after holistic health? What was the next portal that you were confronted with and have walked through? Like so for me, I mentioned earlier it was
Mhm.
law.
Yeah.
Is this left me wide open to okay, so not only from if I have a pretty good script for how I would defend my health position, I also sense that there is a deeper philosophy that I need to articulate for myself in, thanks to guys like at the Sovereign's Way, above and above and beyond anything else. I am whatever comes after I am. You better be
Yeah.
quite diligent. Whatever comes out, and I am a man. Ellipsis, who sometimes podcasts, who sometimes sells real estate, etc. So that was a big one for me. What about you? What was another level that you were called to explore?
That's a deep question, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I did not see myself doing. I think the blood stuff for me would be
Mm,
it. I did because I wanted to kind of do what you were doing, the coaching and helping people, not medicinally, but giving people advice and all that stuff. But then I was like, I know a lot. Let me just get my certification and just do it from there. And when I got into contact with the Bigglesons and looking at the blood, then I started to see that it's not. It's terrain is. Some people like to isolate it to certain things about germs not causing disease, viruses not existing. That's a part of terrain, but terrain is everything. It's your body, it's your existence, your happiness, your health, the earth, your relationships,
yeah,
everything.
capital E environment is a really big thing for
Yes.
people to chew on.
And the blood as an extension of that tells you everything. It literally tells you everything. And when I got to their episode in the end of COVID, I was just my mouth was like because I didn't know that they were even part of the project until later on. Because it was the same reaction I had with Veda Austin's work in the water, the images in the water and the words and all that. And I was like, oh my god, this is the same stuff we're seeing with the water in the blood. Wait, I have to know more about it. So I did the research. I read the books. I went to the school, and I want to do that. That is the goal for me, to be able to get people's blood and tell them exactly what's wrong, and then build a program based off what I'm seeing there, and obviously on what they're telling me as well. Because I didn't see myself doing that, and that is probably the portal I want to get into next. On top of the EAV stuff that I mentioned before, I do want to do more work on understanding the meridians, getting probably an EAV machine, and just learning the acupuncture points to see and read them exactly what's going on. But that's coming after the blood. I do want to do the blood, and I can show you pictures if you want. But I mean,
I'm
just
game.
okay, bet. So I'll
Yeah,
just
let's.
let me see here, because I'm sure. Is this a video podcast or audio or both?
It's both.
Oh,
Yes.
bet. So
Yeah,
perfect.
I'm encouraging more of the video because of as we get into more stuff like this, like while you were talking, I was trying to find a good quality pleomorphic cycle graphic, which I
I
didn't have
got
my
you. I'll
ducks
send
in
it
a
to
row.
you.
Okay,
But
okay,
I,
thank
I
you.
have I have like a bunch of them. So
Yeah, and I have a couple from I know it's from Bigglesons as well, and also the guys at Alpha Vedic when they've done
oh yeah, you
their
had probably
new.
this one, right?
Let me see
Do you
at the
see it?
stage. Yes. Okay. All right. Good. Yes, that is the one that I was
Okay. But
honing in
stuff like
on.
this is really cool. The blood with the microzymas around the
Yeah.
red blood cells. Same thing over here. This was actually the quote unquote parasites, the worms that were
Yeah.
coming from within the blood, not being caught because the body was creating them. Same thing here. You see the blood microzymas, little tiny white dots. Those are what become germs, and these are the blood cells. But all the way on the bottom, this is the stuff that this is the portal you talked about that I want to be a part of. So
Yeah.
right here, and I'll share my screen. Nope, not that. I'll do a slideshow. There we go. So this is the stuff I'm talking about, which is just insane. So on the left-hand side, right here, this is a broken hand. Someone came in with a broken hand. Lo and behold, it showed up in the blood. So the body was concerned about the injury to the hand. In the middle, you can see very clearly, if you know your anatomy, anyone listening, this is a knee.
Yep.
Someone had a leg injury. So the knee was in the blood. It was clearly concerned about it. So this is telling you, let's take care of the knee. On the far right-hand side, you see a head with a huge red dot on the bottom with a stem right here. This is the spinal cord leading into the neck, and this is the head. A woman came in with a hemorrhage. She didn't know she was hemorrhaging. The blood showed the hemorrhage. Lo and behold, she went to the hospital. She had a hemorrhage. On the bottom left-hand side, this is an appendix. On the bottom right-hand side, this is a large intestine, i.e. a colon. You can even see some feces still stuck in the colon.
Yeah.
So this is the body telling you our gut is jacked up. You need to do something about it. More pictures here. This is a spinal cord, which is next to the actual person's spine. Matches up perfectly. This is a lung. So obviously you're dealing with lung pathologies or a lung systemic issue there. This is a hip bone. I mean, this is literally a hip bone. Look at the skeleton. Yep. That's what it looks like. On the bottom here, this is a thyroid gland, huge with hormones and stuff like that. This is another knee. On the left-hand side here, this is a head. You can clearly see the skull here, the ear, and then a blow to the left-hand side. So this person had been in an accident or an injury that affected the head. This here is a kidney. So we're looking at blood flow. We're looking at the urinary tract. We're looking at the emotion of fear linked to the kidneys. Right here is another leg bone. This is like insane. It's literally
surreal. Yeah.
Here, this was really interesting talking about the fascia. The Bigglesons mentioned this is obviously a foot, but all of this kind of like little wires, these little golden sparks of light, if you will. Could this be fascia being shown in the blood that is saying there is some sort of circulatory stagnation there, that we're not getting enough electric flow, fluid flow into the foot? I like to think that's pretty possible. Another one, here's a foot, leg here, foot. This is the liver, very clearly a liver with the umbilical ligament attached to it. The umbilical ligament, when we talked about in the beginning with birthing trauma, when doctors cut the umbilical ligament or slightly pull on it, it actually is attached to the liver, which pulls down the liver and creates pressure to the liver. When that happens, not only do you have stagnation in your regular waste flow with the lymph system, but you also have a lot of anger. In Chinese medicine, the liver and anger are coinciding with each other. So you have anger issues, you have skin pathology, you have circulatory stuff with the lymph. Look at the liver, look at the umbilical cord, and look at the belly button as well. The belly button is actually a scar. That's what the umbilical cord comes out of. So if that scar is actually pulling on the liver, you need to release it. So there's belly button manipulation you can do. You can go to a cranial osteopath. They can do some work on your stomach. And you mentioned the diaphragm too. I went to an osteopath recently, and I had like lower back pain. I lift a lot, so sometimes I do a little too much. And I had lower back pain. She did some manipulation on my back and stuff. Gone completely. And I also had breathing issues as a kid. I got every shot known to man. I had asthma, allergies, you name it. She pumped my diaphragm, just pressing on it for 30 minutes straight. She had a machine doing stuff on my diaphragm. Ever since then, my breathing has gotten so much better because my body was actually able to just activate the diaphragm in a way it's never been done before. And when you look at the birthing process, the birthing trauma, what is the first thing they do when you come out of the body? They slap you on the back. When they slap you on the back, you're kind of, and then you're breathing through your mouth the rest of your life. So because you're shocked, you're mouth breathing instead of nose breathing. So instead of doing that, what you should do in a birth is actually slightly press the diaphragm to really get a deep breath in there. And the deep breath in osteopathy actually expands the skull sutures and expands the structure because you were kind of encaved in there for a while. So now you're expanding with that first breath, which is really important. On the bottom left-hand side, that is a coccyx or a tailbone. So the coccyx is actually it's part of the femur and the entire area near your genitals and stuff like that. Really important for your structure, but it's also something that pumps cerebral spinal fluid throughout your body. So when people like to say, "Oh, it's proof that we come from like apes or fish," it's not. It's stupid. What it actually is it moves. All of our bones, all of our muscles are constantly moving. There are pressure changes because of the fluid moving. So the coccyx bone moves to then push the cerebral spinal fluid up. When we swallow, the cerebral spinal fluid moves through our brain. So it's a circle. It's constantly moving, and that nourishes our nervous system. So right here, this was an injury to the coccyx, which would then lead to cerebral spinal fluid not being able to flow adequately, which, as you know, can lead to a lot of different nerve issues. So that's really important to know, and the body's obviously concerned about it. Right here, this is very clearly a penis. Now, why is that being shown? This guy came in with a lot of different pathologies, and he had recently had a vasectomy. Lo and behold, that's a penis. You can see the testicle there, and you see this big blob here, which is pretty much exactly where they cut. So the body is concerned about this. So what you would do is probably reverse the vasectomy and then do some structural work as well to try to get the fluid flow back into the penis. And that's something that a lot of guys are doing nowadays because they don't want to have kids. I get it. Condoms suck, but is it worth creating trapped inflammation into your body that
Yeah,
is your body is then trying to heal?
I'm just realizing the just not the danger. I'm just what a massive change it would be to do that, and
Dude,
that is a level of intervention that I don't. I mean, yeah, it's really hitting me right now, just that choice to go that surgical route. And it really made sense to me when I read Dr. Biggleson's book, Doctors Are More Harmful Than Germs, talking
yeah,
about what the scar is, what the incision point is.
yeah,
Uh, it is a wound, no matter how you've been penetrated, you've been cut. That in and of itself is throughout all the ages has been a life-threatening situation.
yep,
And to say nothing of being blacked out to it,
yeah,
and then well, I also heard Irene talk about, just as a brief detour, she talked about whatever the phenomenon is when people wake up during surgery and are still paralyzed in terms of their reaction, and yet they feel it. So like they have the level of stored shame and embarrassment and pain comparable to sexual assault victims,
yep,
and even worse, she says, because a sexual assault victim still has some sort of reaction, even if they are unfortunately coerced to surrender. They still have a fight or flight response. They still want to kick, stab, scream, run away, all that stuff. For you to be cut open and being, having things moved around inside of you or cut off, and to be, I mean, even if you wake up or not, it's still a level of surrender and trauma that it takes a while for your nervous system to process. And then, yeah,
yep,
just whatever the fascia is starting to become. I mean, first of all, it's universal.
hmm,
It is cinched or closed in the hands and the feet, so those become really dynamic. That's why, part of why I just like to floss with this thing, and I love doing this with my feet as well, is just to make sure the energy is going there to the ends. Those are the ends of our body as well. They wrap around and potentially inside each and every organ.
yep,
So the communication makes sense as well. And then you're right. For a lot of these being a lot of our philosophies around health in this new age context, being rooted largely in classical or traditional Chinese medicine,
yeah,
talking about how wherever a blockage is, and a scar, sort of how I remember Dr. Biggleson putting it, is that blockage, right? It becomes the roadblock
yes,
where energy and electricity cannot move
cannot move.
freely. Yeah, and so much of the last thing I'll say to put a lid on that is, so much, thankfully, of the evolving fascia discussion is that, you may feel an adhesion in your hip. We're gonna, thanks to people like Brooke, that's
Yeah,
which is why I admire her work so much, is we are still going to start at the feet. We're still going to start at the calf, because that is all literally upstream. And if all you do is focus on that adhesion in that one spot, then you're not focusing on the literal downstream, the groundswell of electricity's ability to flow freely through you. Because if you don't work out your blockage or your weakness or your immobility in the lower leg, then yeah, your knee is going to be fucked, your hips going to be fucked, and then you get shoulder, neck. I mean, she
yep,
pointed out that the iliotibial band, our lateral bands, run all the way up to our neck. So you might be pummeling, you may be getting a neck massage, but if you have an incredibly blocked and sticky lateral band on your outer thigh, then you're fucked. And so this brings me back to an earlier point where people's exhaustion, the fatigue, where they don't get curious about what's happening. Um, a lot of people don't know where to start, man. Which
yeah,
is why I said I see very much the utility of investing in a practitioner who will go to the library of your experience in this body, which is your blood. I mean, this is Steiner spoke about this, the wisdom of your blood. It is a wisdom organ. It is a living organ that connects your soul experience to your body. And I mean, I don't think that's over people's head. Just because it's esoteric, just because it's a deeper level of consciousness, doesn't mean it has no bearing on what people can comprehend.
I completely agree. And I think you keep mentioning fascia, which is like, it's so important because body work is one of the main components that we would do if something like this shows up in the blood. Like, and I misspoke before, the coccyx is a part of the pelvis. But when you look at what the body is telling you, if there is an organ here, for instance, look at the leg here, which is I think tibia, fibula right here. Would you only work on the tibia, fibula, or would you want to work on the knee and then the foot and then the tibia and fibula? I would go for the latter because, as you mentioned, when there is an injury or when there is a scar tissue from a surgery, that is blocking fluid flow. Scar tissue is kind of like a spongy like substance. It pulls things to it, and lymphatic fluid and blood cannot circulate properly because they can't get through. So when scar tissue forms, it is a form of healing. Your body did it to prevent you from dying. On the flip side, the stuff can't get through. So now your body's working overtime to try and heal something that it can't finish healing. And then it develops into chronic disease that people will not connect to the surgery or the injury. So structural issues are so important. So that's when we would go into a cranial osteopath, maybe the guys at Health Garage, I think, where they do fascia.
Human Garage.
Garage, yes.
Yeah.
They do fascia manipulation. So finding the correct practitioner that would be able to do stuff and release the scars, release those stagnations are so important. And more pictures, I mean, insane stuff. Oh yeah, so talking about structure and how it connects with everything. In the allopathic model, a lot of people don't believe that the leg is connected to the head or the arm is connected to the hip or whatnot. Yeah. Everything is connected, and that goes into fascia. The fascia connects everything together. When there is an issue in my neck, my left toe knows why. So it's going to be connecting. And I say that because on the bottom right here, and I love talking about teeth, this is a tooth that had a metal implant that was screwed on.
Fucking gnarly.
Jeez. And it shows up right there, clear as day. On the far left, you see teeth here. You can see the periodontal ligament. You see the teeth right here. So why I mentioned teeth is because there is the 12th cranial nerve, I believe. It's called, it connects the sternocleidomastoid and the trapezius. It's only one nerve in your back. It connects two muscles. Why is it? Because most cranial nerves actually connect a lot of different things, but this one only connects two. The reason being is it helps with your writing reflex. So it actually keeps your eyes aligned to the horizon so that your body is straight. But when you remove a tooth and you do like a filling or a metallic filling or whatnot, now the structure of your jaw is out of alignment. So what does the sternocleidomastoid do? It's kind of trying to push you back into the horizon to line up your skull. But now your mouth is kind of like this, which means you got neck pain, which means your back is going to start to try to take compensation of that pain. Your legs start to kind of be out of whack, all from removing your tooth. Yeah. But the reason why you have the pain is because your body with the sternocleidomastoid and the trapezius are still trying to keep up. So they're still trying to keep straight. But your structural issue that you feel in your knee was all caused by you removing your tooth. So it's all connected. It's all structure, and it's amazing to see. The duodenum, which is a part of the gut, the large intestine, you see that here. Yeah. Cervix, you see the uterus on the side here. This one is insane. On the top of the teeth, you can see the eye sockets, and that's just the front bone right here of the skull. So someone had an injury there. This is a spinal cord. The nervous system showed up, and obviously you go to someone who doesn't know what they're doing. They see this in the blood, and they're going to be like, "Oh my God, you have parasites."
Yeah.
No. This is a very clear the nervous system, that the body is going through something with the nerve pathology. I would look at the cerebrospinal fluid, and then the next ones are just the water, which I'm sure people are aware of. But this all connects with water communication in the blood, because the blood primarily is plasma. Plasma primarily is water. So when we understand we're all coming from water, we're all blood. And I mean, there's so much we don't understand about the body yet, but it's an intelligent organ. The blood is an organ. I mean, Antoine Béchamp called it an organ. It's the biggest organ of the body over the skin. It keeps us alive. I mean, and it tells us exactly what's wrong. And this stuff, mind you, with people listening, this is not actually in the blood. If these things were actual physical symbols and images in the blood, like actually in there, you would be dead in a second.
Yeah,
because
and
you
that's why I was grateful to the Biggleson brothers for, just unraveling the fake tapestry of people, talking about, what they'd observed under microscopes for, the shots or
yeah,
anything like that,
yeah,
and
yeah, exactly.
microchipping and all that, and it's, like, literally physically impossible. If something that large, that visible was actually in there, you would
Mhm.
die. So this is
And
the
and that
Yeah,
goes
go ahead.
into what we were talking about offline. You said you were wrong about the lab leak stuff.
Mhm,
I was wrong about the stuff in the vaccine, and I'm okay to admit that because I believed what they were seeing. This
mhm,
was way before I didn't know about the Biggleson work. Now, do they have heavy metals in the vaccine? For sure, yeah, they do.
yep,
Do they have parasites and stuff and mRNA and stuff? No, I don't think they do because there's no evidence to suggest they do. So again, this with the blood stuff, if this stuff was in your blood, you would clot and die of a stroke or a heart attack instantly. So this goes into the Steiner stuff, the energy, the ether, if you will. The blood is resonating at a frequency, and that frequency is bouncing off light that you use in the dark field microscope where you split the light and all that, and that frequency is being caught from the light and from the blood and from the interference field. The interference field is whatever is wrong with you. That is resonating with the frequency. So your body, these frequencies are combining and just kind of manipulating each other. Then you use the light, and lo and behold, you see the image. So this is not actually in the blood. This is really an image of energy. This is
yeah,
your body telling you what's wrong through its ether, through its energetic force, through its chi, its prana, whatever you want to call it. So that goes into more so how there's so much we don't understand about our energy, how it affects one another, how we can affect people with simply our intention. I mean, I put in my slideshow down here, was it
yeah,
right here? There, and this was part of the end of COVID, how these tiny chicks that had bonded with a robot that was on a random number generator, they were able to manipulate the robot simply by being bonded with it and kept it near them. So they were, and initially on the top here on A, the robot was designed to go on random patterns, but the chicks became bonded with it. And when the chicks were on this chart here, when they were all on the right hand side of the chart, the robot stayed close to them. Now, mind you, this is a robot. It has no mind. It's just a random number generator. With the intention of care and bonding and love, the chicks were able to manipulate the robot to stay close to it. How is that possible? It's all through energy, it's all through frequency, it's all through intention, which is why we talked about intention and healing is very important. If you change your diet and you don't believe you're going to heal, you're not going to heal. If you take a homeopathic and you're like, yeah, this is quackery, I'm not going to heal, you're probably not going to heal because the intention needs to be there along with what you're actually doing.
yeah, and it's an interesting logical fallacy. I don't know if it's a logical fallacy. I just find it something that's attached to that perspective is I will only know that this works when I see results.
Yeah.
I've been there before for sure. And like I said, I have someone who in my life who is deeply skeptical. My disposition is more uh, I'm open. I will try that, and especially so many of the things that are offered from the likes of Dr. Cowan, ADV, Topher
Mm.
Gardner, Steve Falconer, Lisa. I mean, it's a great roster. It's the best roster we've ever had, I think, and it,
Yeah.
it continues to grow. Uh, there are so many things that just seem like a yes. That sounds simpler, more beautiful. I can really work with that, and then I live accordingly, and that's generally where I've found great strides to be had. I'm certainly curious, and this is another extension of who's to say, and just your general exploration. Has there been a really tall hurdle for you to surmount in terms of explaining disease, but also mitigating the fear around it? Like, I'm sure you were wide open as soon as you got into it,
Oh
but
yeah.
what was it? But even still, I mean, was there anything that you really felt uncomfortable that either you couldn't explain or yeah, I just wonder that for myself because like I said,
Yeah.
some of us are just like, yeah, I mean, it's all now terrain, and I don't believe in a single virus, and yet I stay open. There were moments in the last couple of years where, and I forget specific examples, but there's usually a check. There's usually just a little bit of a report card due to see, okay, do I really buy what I'm putting out there? But you've been deep in the research world,
Yeah.
so I hope that helps when you're shining a fucking spotlight on stuff. But even still, man, I mean, is there anything that's been really hard for you to wrap your head around, because I feel like you've tackled most of it. I'll bring your page up here in a second so people can see, because I've mentioned it before. Most people just balk at why don't I have it here? Most people will just balk at, well, I mean, you can't deny AIDS, and things like that, where either it's just too scary because of the machinery
Yeah.
behind it. I feel like that's part of it. So yeah, and if the answer is no, like you've just tackled everything head on, that's great. I'm just
So I
curious.
mean, I would
Yeah.
like to say that I did, and I feel like I did tackle everything head on because I wasn't really afraid of the machine. Some people are, but it's a very intimidating space to get into because they have literally hundreds of years worth of supposed research. But when you realize that all of it is completely fake, then it's easy to understand what they are actually doing. I would say the hardest thing was virology. I
Yeah.
really focused on specializing in what they were doing in cell cultures, what they were doing in electron microscopy imaging, what they were doing with all these antibody tests or whatnot. That is very intimidating because they use words like cytopathic effect, immunological stuff. They use all these different growth stimulants, ingredients. So to the regular person, yeah, what the hell are they talking about? I'm not going to do anything with this. Just I'm going to believe what they tell me to do. You really have to get into it and just read the studies. I've read at this point well over 500 virology studies,
Yeah.
well over 1,000 germ theory stuff in total. The germ stuff is actually pretty easy to understand because they always nip themselves in the bud. With virology, they are presupposing something exists. So that's when you have to understand that they think it's there before they actually do the experiment, which makes things even more confusing.
Yeah.
So I think the virology stuff was tough at first, which is why I didn't want to do my page until I really understood the fraud behind virology. And then from there, everything was pretty easy. And yeah, I get the people that are, you can't deny AIDS, you can't deny contagion. Well, yeah, I do it all the time. AIDS is a, and you mentioned it, but it's a non-specific disease. It's usually caused by malnourishment, chemotherapy, and drug use. That's it. They convinced people that it was a sexually transmitted disease because a bunch of gay guys who were taking poppers, lo and behold, all developed pneumonia. And then they were like, you know what? Must be a virus. The Perth group did fantastic work on HIV. And you see it here. The HIV tests, there's 70 conditions that net you a positive HIV test. So obviously it's not specific. What they did was they'd make you test positive with garbage tests like the PCR or antibody test. You go to the hospital, they give you AZT, and then you die. It's that simple. They did the same thing for COVID. Non-specific symptoms, take a test, go to the hospital, you die. It's the same playbook over and over again. So when I get questions in my DMs like that about, HIV, smallpox and natives and all that stuff, there's always explanations. There are always information that will tell you the truth.
Well, and with the native stuff, well, and first of all, you're speaking to unfortunately a rampant tactic in any technical field, which is that they use the jargon, and this is a narcissistic tendency, by the way, and I think there's a few of those in positions of influence, even though the positions of influence are changing thanks to spaces like this. It is a narcissistic tendency to use jargon, and because you're counting on people feeling so stupid that they just throw up their hands in surrender and don't seek to explore it even more. And that is the case in so many respects, whether it's what NASA does or certainly big pharma and allopathic medicine. I think even the fitness world has gone that route, especially the training world has gone that route. And it's a very disempowering experience for people to say. So, and importantly, I want to emphasize this for people as in my highest pursuit of sharing my own explorations and what I believe has helped me make massive strides in my own sense of who I am and where I'm going and my purpose in this world, is that if something doesn't make sense, it's not that you're stupid, it's that it doesn't make sense. And so lean into that and just be like, okay, fine. And I mean, that people give me a hard time because that's where I've landed with what the nature of this realm is and certainly the shape of it. I mean, if there's enough to be lied about, I don't presume that I know that it's flat either, or more flat, or torus like.
I don't know if I can change my screen. Let me see if I can
Do it if you
can
can.
you let me see. Sure. Do you see that?
Hold on, let me get rid of that.
You see
Yes,
that?
I do. Yes,
Yeah.
I do. Tell us what we're looking at, Jacob.
That is the new standard map by Gleason. I mean, this was the map that they used for
And he's got a
decades.
zero, and he's got his zero barefoot shoes over there.
Yeah,
He gets it,
yeah,
people. Jacob
yeah.
gets it.
I
He
get it.
gets
Yeah, I love those things. By the way, freaking amazing. But yeah, I was the same way. I was kind of a little bit. Is it flat? Is it not? But again, I'm a Bible reader, and
it. Yeah.
I was reading stuff, and I was like, yeah, it's pretty apparent that it's not a round shape. And then when you get into the NASA, what NASA does, and they lie all the time. Same thing with the CDC.
But
Um,
here's the confusion
yeah,
though, is when you consider the veracity of something like a firmament. Okay, fine, it has more of a spherical dome shape. That
yeah,
doesn't mean it has a 23-degree axial tilt, and that doesn't mean it's
no,
hurtling at thousands of miles an hour and spins every day. Like, so there's nuances.
yes, correct.
Shape aside, which again, I'm happy to say I don't know, uh, since I'm more fascinated in energetics
Mm.
than something like a torus, something like the container of a firmament where gases actually need to be contained instead of saying you're in a
Exactly,
fucking, meaningless vacuum.
exactly.
And I'll say this, which I haven't quite shared before, the acceptance of an intelligent, loving, supportive of life creator
Mm.
leads you to believe, because I don't think people fully appreciate what the models and what the Watiko and the viruses that I do believe in, mind viruses,
Mhm.
that I do believe are contagious,
Yeah, yeah.
the how those have filtered down through the ages have left us in the place of nihilism and disconnection. And I don't think people quite get that, is again, for the legal system, for the law system to be largely rooted in your status as a citizen, taxpayer, claimant, defendant, instead of man or woman, uh man or woman beholden only to a creator and therefore to humanity. Did I harm you? Did I rape you? Did I deceive you? Things like that. Instead, you get into statutes and legalese. So I'm that's why I'm talking to people like you and Danny Katz, Emily Moyer, Steve Falconer to burst a lot of those bubbles, because I am committed to the movement that is connecting people as best we can. You don't have to be connected to my relationship with God as long as you have your own.
Look, everyone,
And
exactly.
and for you, Jacob, I mean, was your faith life already online and strong in the last several years? That was already a
Yeah,
foundation for you. Okay,
yeah.
good.
It was a big foundation for me, and I think that's what really allowed me to accept all these truths about terrain was my faith. Because I always, honestly, as a kid, and this goes into what we were talking about before, I always kind of thought the Earth was flat, but I just never questioned it.
Yeah, as
Yeah,
Owen Benjamin has said, unless you were told
yeah,
the nonsense story, you would have no idea. Why would you think that you're spinning when
exactly. I'm
when the
not saying anything.
stars,
Exactly,
when everything else moves around you? So why would
exactly.
you
And
these are the inversions. I talk about
yeah,
inversions a lot, is like you so I won't derail you. Go ahead.
okay.
So you already
No,
suspected.
but
You're
yeah,
already
I always
curious.
suspected that, and I always suspected that nature and the body work together, and that a loving God would not create these pathogens that can be easily spread and kill each other. So from that aspect, then I was able to understand terrain at a much easier rate than others because I didn't have those preconceived notions already deep in my brain, which was really rooted in faith. So I think having that relationship with God and understanding the nature behind everything would allow you to accept things because terrain, I mean, it's again, it seems intimidating. It's not. Virology is intimidating because it's
Yeah.
completely wrong. So you just got to get rid of those preconceived notions and look and be honest with yourself and just look into it yourself and you'll see the truth behind everything.
I uh I don't mind continuing to trumpet the good work of Paul Check, who, as I said, has been a world class mentor to me from afar. He said one of the most dangerous, probably the most dangerous thing you can do for your health is bullshit yourself.
Yep.
And so that is why I consider all of these worthwhile pursuits, to be curious about the nature of the realm, to be curious about uh, your dynamic, your astrology, how that might impact your relationships, of course your terrain, which, like we said, is capital. And so the title of this episode, Jacob, which I'm just experimenting with, sort of naming it before we go live to ground my own thought process, is that the map is not the terrain, which I know folks like the Bigglesons have helped circulate that mantra. When you hear that in relation to what we've been talking today, what does that make you think of? Because the more I get into, like you just brought up a map of the nervous system, and
Mhm.
even that is a superficial map, because the one
Yep.
that I've seen in the fascia world
It's different.
is wild. First of
Mhm.
all, it looks like a tree.
It looks like
Branches, leaves, deep,
yeah.
deep roots. I mean, the
Yep.
tendrils are all there, and it's massive. And so the extension of that is, just to riff, is that to look at a skeleton does not tell you what it looks like today. It does not tell
No.
you, just because you've seen a skeleton doesn't mean that that's, you don't know the density of your fib tib. You don't know how fluid, again, this is where fascia is critical, even if you don't get a visual on it, to start to have some relationship with it, you touching it, or laying on a tennis ball or on a block, just to get familiar with it. So yeah, how do you interact with that concept? Is like, okay, you've studied what a skeleton looks like, what a nervous system looks like, what a liver looks like, and then terrain. How does that change the landscape for you when you really lean in?
I think a huge, especially in the natural space as well, as I continue to see it growing, we we need to focus on the whole. And you mentioned you like to define holistic medicine to the people that you coach. Um, we tend to like to isolate variables in our body. Like when you talk about the skeletal system. Oh yeah, that's cool. I studied how it looks. I studied how the organs look. All that stuff. What does that mean? What can we do with that information? When people do blood tests, why does I don't do blood tests because they don't
Yeah.
matter. They don't matter. They're telling you a snapshot of that specific moment. It's not telling you why it's happening and if it's going to be the same tomorrow.
And
So
they have people fast, and how often are people
yeah,
fasting?
exactly. So
uh,
understanding that the the terrain really it's everything. It's not just the bones, not just the organs. It's your entire spiritual relationship with God, with yourself, your emotions, your physical, your mental, everything. It's not isolated instances. So when people go to these naturopaths or functional doctors and they'll say, "Oh yeah, yes organ, let's do 17 protocol, let's do a detox protocol, let's have you take these supplements." They're not doing anything because they're missing the whole picture. It's a whole thing. You are not a sum of physical parts, just you are emotions, you are energy, you are happiness, sadness, everything, spirituality encased in a physical being. So you need to take care of everything. And that's what terrain needs to be. It's not just the viruses don't exist. It's not just germs don't cause disease. It's not just organ supplements are good. It's everything. And I mean the capital E, everything in environment. I mean, it's environment, it's your emotion, E, really. Emotions, environment, everything. I mean, that's triple E. But yeah, that's what I have to say about
that's
it.
well said. And yeah, just to qualify, when I'm at my best, that's an empowering thing to in whatever phase I'm in, and encourage this for people as well, to touch as much of everything as you can. There is only one all-knowing, all-powerful, and yet, I mean, these are the paradoxes we have to grapple with. Is we are still a version of that. We are still our own unique version of that, and so we have our own infinite capacities as well. I know. I mean, I've still got bullets in the gun. There are things that are deserving of more deeper delves, and so you certainly have an open invite to return if you're game to
Absolutely, dude.
continue to unravel.
Anytime.
My penultimate question would be, just to give people a little morsel to chew on. And I know generalizations are tough, and yet we have foundations. Uh, how would you advise people to cultivate the terrain? And I will qualify that as well, because my dear brother Matty K, Matt Coleman, and I, we've been rapping about this on our Athletic Alchemy series. Is that he and I, as coaches, especially as holistic coaches, we no longer feel, whether people feel this on their own is up to them. He and I don't feel rushed to, someone says, okay, I'll train with you for 8 weeks. We got to get in the gym, get your speed going, like, start, making you really get the fuck after it. No, like, I will start with feet, posture, quiet, hydration, like
Mhm.
really, really simple foundational stuff. So we don't need anything sexy or dynamic. I mean, people might be thinking of holographic blood as sort of sexy and surreal. So with that in mind, though, I mean, even if it's cliches, man, we'll invite it. How do you advise people in January, Northern Hemisphere, cold, winter, regeneration. I mentioned this in a recent podcast, is that don't think stuff is dead right now.
It's not
It's sleeping.
sleeping.
And we go through that. We do less, we sleep, we don't quite hibernate. But again, don't think, I don't train like I did in the summer, when I was playing tennis outside 3 days a week. Much different experience now. So snapshot in time, we're in a new season. Whether or not we say new year or not, it's still a season. It's just
Yeah.
the other side of Christmas. Christmas this year for me was 13 holy nights. Having a real, like I said, a real season. It wasn't just a day. It wasn't just 2 days, and it didn't get surpassed by New Year. It was a really deeply seasonally spiritual time. So let me punctuate this and just say, yeah, if you have a couple things that are tried and trues for terrain, what direction would you point people in?
Tried and trues. And you said specifically for the people in the Northern Hemisphere, January, new
Yeah.
season. This is usually the time, and I'm seeing a lot. And a lot of my questions yesterday were about neurovirus and colds and whatever. This is the time where our body is resetting if you need to reset. It's no different from a oil change in your car or a filter change of your AC. The changes in the weather and our environment will dictate our body then to change with it as well. So our air filters need to change, i.e., our lungs. So why do we get colds? Why do we get pneumonia? Why? Because we're getting this stuff out of our lungs to prepare for the new weather. Lower humidity, really cold temperatures, not enough sunlight because it's going down a lot quicker. We're eating a lot of garbage, usually in the holidays, Christmas, New Year's. A lot of family drama, usually when people come together, a lot of drama there. You are bound to get sick and develop this illness to try and heal your body because your body senses an imbalance. So what I would do, especially this time of year, what I do specifically, I, for one, go out in the cold for a little bit just to really adapt your body to get used to it. Because again, if we run away from the cold, you're going to get affected from the cold. So go out in the cold 10 minutes a day, put a jacket on for sure, but get exposed to the cold, get used to it. Eat a lot of fat. What do animals do when it's wintertime? They eat tons and tons of animal fat and they hibernate. Obviously, humans don't have that luxury, but since we're not getting enough sunlight, we do want to get more fat soluble vitamins, including hormone D, which is not a vitamin, it's a hormone. You get that from fat. So eat a lot of quality fat, which is not going to get you fat. You're going to get a lot of energy from it. Those two things, getting cold, eating fat, still moving. I mean, I go out to the gym about 4 days a week. It's hard to stay motivated when it's winter and it's cold, but do it because your body doesn't want to stop moving and being healthy. When you get sedentary and all you do is rest and eat garbage, yeah, you're going to get sick. So those are the three main things: go out in the cold, eat fat, quality fat. I'm not talking about seed oils,
Right.
And then move. Those are the three things I would do, especially in the wintertime. And you're not going to get sick. I do it. A lot of people others do it when it's cold and we're not sick. So the proof is in the pudding, I guess.
It is, and I'm like you. I'm team simple. As it doesn't, you don't have to go buy yourself many gadgets or switch.
No.
You shift things in your diet. When people ask me about spending money at the grocery store or on subscription services, I say, well, I believe it's true that the more high quality, high source food that you consume, it satiates. I think you buy fewer things anyway, so you just pick a shift. Like, yeah,
You
would
do buy a lot
incorporate.
of fewer things. I just buy beef and fruit. That's it. And
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, I'm good. I'm satiated. I'm healthy. I got energy. I'm strong. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing else.
And especially in winter, you don't need crazy variety.
don't.
There's not 5 different berries in season. I understand
No.
there's 5 different berries at the fucking grocery store.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that they're at least here. I mean, fine, they're in season year round in California. That's great.
Yeah,
I don't live in California.
exactly.
So those things I like to think are there for the taking. Our ultimate question now, and you've been a good sport rocking with me today. I've learned and enjoyed so much. Just a peek behind the curtain. What are you opening yourself and your mind and your receptive portal to at this time? Is it new research? I know I'm going to bring up your website while you answer, because you do have your new practice. So I know that demands your most conscious faculties, and yet I know you're a perennial learner and an open mind. So yeah, what's new that you're trying to chew on and digest for yourself these days?
I mean, yeah. So you said it. I built my practice. It's pretty much just me right now running it. So the goal as of now is to really start to get clients to help them. I have two so far. I've helped them,
Great.
and I want to do more. I want to help people. So if anyone is interested in doing a consultation with me, terrain-based naturopathic health. And when you look at the, again, not to toot my horn, but it's pretty cheap
Do it.
compared to others. And the later on, I do, again, I mentioned it in the beginning. I want to hit on EAV testing and do that eventually. I'm currently doing Lee Sisterback's homeopathy course, which I want to put that into my practice as well, doing more
Yeah.
homeopathy. And then doing, obviously, I'm going in February. I'm going to be going to Mexico to train with the Bigglesons directly with the blood. So when I do all of that, then I can make my practice even more broad. So, I mean, that's the goal. And I don't want to put too much on my plate right now, but the building the practice, I just ordered some business cards and, flyers. So we're going, we're doing stuff.
Yeah.
So that's taking most of my, as you said, most of my faculties are focused on that. And of course, continuing with the content on Instagram. I got to do the posts ever so often about certain
Yeah.
diseases and tips and stuff. So that's where it's at right now. So that's what I'm doing. And I hope I can grow and eventually, build relationships with people, with you, with the Bigglesons, with Mary, with even Tom Cowan's clinic, maybe eventually just
Yeah.
doing stuff and trying to build a new paradigm completely.
That's what it takes. That's some blue collar stuff right there,
Yeah.
man, because I know you're just chipping away, logging some good hours. And from my overstanding of where we find ourselves this season, this time, what this year means, uh, 2025 in tarot being a 9-year, the hermit, walking that one singular path, picking a path, walking it diligently. You're on your own for a little while. You know that there's people also on their paths walking alongside you. It's not pure isolation. And yet, I mean, I know you've been in the laboratory, on your own, doing your own thing. And this is the time where that does. It is a building phase, because I was trying to reconcile this the way it was described, that a 9, being, there's only 1 through 9 digits. 0 is completion, it's source. So that'll be next year. And I was trying to grapple with this being sort of end of a cycle before we start a new one. But that works. You and I are in building
Yeah.
phases. I'm in a new coaching phase. You're in a new, establishing your own practice, eating what you kill, hanging your own shingle, which
Yeah.
pretty much anyone who has a, if not one eye open, or if not two eyes, at least one eye on what they feel to be their purpose, their calling, and start to walk it. I say just fucking hang your own shingle. Be Jacob Diaz, and that's it. You don't always need,
Yeah.
another team or another building or anything
It's
like that.
cliche,
So
but you gotta lock in and follow your dream if you wanted to reach it. If you want to reach the
yeah,
goal, you gotta just do it. And it's gonna be uncomfortable at the beginning. It's gonna be tough, long hours and not getting enough money and focusing on paying bills and all that. It's gonna happen. But you lock in, you do your intention. It's all about intention. You do what you
yeah.
need, what needs to be done, blue collar work, you're gonna reap the benefits. It's gonna take time, but it's worth it for sure.
It is worth it, and that will attract the opportunities and the abundance
Yep.
that you need when you're ready.
You attract
And
you attract the energy you put out for
yeah,
sure.
and for every step you take, the universe takes one, one step toward you. So I feel that for you, man, because your energy is invested there. I love that you smile when you talk about it, the enthusiasm, the fact that
Yeah.
you infuse what you do with spirit and with your soul. That makes a huge difference. So I'm immensely thankful that you agreed to do this, that we got to, for my own benefit, and then to, like I said, to curate and circulate what I feel to be necessary, important conversations for people to have a greater curiosity, and then they know that their body is self-healing, self-regenerating, and from there, man, I mean, then you're resilient, and then you're unstoppable,
Yep.
which
Amen.
is what you're about. So thank you, Jacob. This has been a real pleasure and a privilege to have you
I
here with me
appreciate time.
today.
Anytime. I'll gladly come back.
I will take you up on that.
Yeah.
Thank you, man.